Imagine this. You're in the middle of the African wilderness. It's quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel small. Then you hear it, a deep, heart-wrenching cry. It's not just any sound. It's the sound of loss, confusion, fear. And when you follow it, you find him, a tiny elephant, barely able to walk, standing next to the lifeless body of his mother. His name is Tempo, and in this moment, his world has completely fallen apart. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever felt completely alone? Like the one person you depended on was suddenly gone, and you had no idea what to do next. That's exactly what Tempo was going through. And for a baby elephant, this kind of loss isn't just emotional, it's life-threatening. You see, elephants are a lot like us. They don't just rely on their mothers for food and protection. They need them for comfort, for guidance, for love. When a baby elephant loses its mother, it's not uncommon for them to completely shut down. They stop eating. They stop moving. They just give up. And that's exactly what was happening to Tempo. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't drink. He wouldn't even acknowledge the other elephants around him. It was like he was just waiting to fade away. But the people who found him, they weren't going to let that happen. The locals knew that if they didn't step in, Tempo wouldn't make it. So, they did something risky. They decided to take him away from the wild and bring him to a place called Shamari Reserve, a sanctuary for animals who have nowhere else to go. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Taking a wild animal out of its natural environment, isn't that cruel? But in this case, it was the only chance he had. At the reserve, Tempo was surrounded by people who wanted nothing more than to help him heal. They tried everything, gentle touches, soft voices, even singing to him. But no matter what they did, he stayed distant. He kept his back turned. He refused to make eye contact. The pain of losing his mother was too much, and no amount of kindness could break through that wall he had built around himself. And then there was the biggest problem of all. He still wouldn't eat. This was the most terrifying part, because a baby elephant that refuses to eat, that's a death sentence. The caretakers tried everything. They brought him fresh leaves, juicy fruits, even warm bottles of milk, the same kind his mother would have fed him. But he would just knock them away. He didn't want food. He didn't want love. He didn't want anything. And that's when they realized they needed a different approach. If love and kindness weren't working, maybe something unexpected would. Enter Albert. Now, Albert wasn't another elephant. He wasn't even a wild animal. Albert was a sheep, a small, woolly, completely ordinary sheep. And the idea of introducing him to Tempo, it sounded ridiculous. What could a sheep possibly do for a grieving elephant? But at this point, they were desperate, and so they gave it a shot. At first, it did not go well. The moment Albert stepped into Tempo's space, the elephant lost it. He charged at the poor sheep, stomping and trumpeting like he wanted to chase him right out of the enclosure. And honestly, that reaction made sense. Tempo had been holding in so much anger, so much frustration. And now here was this tiny creature just standing there, like he had no idea what was going on. But here's the crazy part. Albert didn't run. He flinched, sure, but he didn't leave. He just stood there, staring at this giant, raging elephant as if to say, "Okay, get it out of your system." And day by day, that anger started to fade. Tempo stopped chasing Albert. Then he stopped glaring at him. Then he got curious. He started watching him, studying him. And slowly, something incredible happened. One morning, the caretakers found them standing side by side, not interacting, not playing, just standing there, quietly existing together. And from that moment on, everything changed. Tempo started following Albert around. He watched how the sheep ate, how he laid down to rest, how he explored their shared space. And then, in the most surprising moment of all, Tempo picked up a piece of food, and he ate it. It was like Albert had reminded him how to live again. that it was okay to move forward, even after loss, that even if the pain never fully went away, he didn't have to let it consume him. From that day on, Tempo and Albert were inseparable. They ate together, played together, even slept beside each other. And every day, Tempo got a little stronger, a little braver, a little more like the elephant he was always meant to be. And the people who had fought so hard to save him, they could finally breathe again, because against all odds, this baby elephant, who had once been too heartbroken to go on, had found a reason to keep going. Now, here's what I want you to take from this story. We all go through loss. We all face moments where we feel completely alone. But sometimes healing comes in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes it takes just one connection, one person, one friend, even one small moment, to remind us that life is still worth living. So if you're struggling right now, if you feel like there's no way forward, just remember Tempo. Remember that even in the deepest grief, there's still hope, there's still love, and sometimes that love shows up in ways you'd never expect. And if this story touched you in any way, do me a favor, share it. Someone out there might need to hear it. And who knows, maybe you'll be the Albert to someone else's Tempo. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.